Thank you.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, Tuesday, March 23rd, I'm officially calling our meeting to order. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment?
We have a couple of these. Looks like Lisa Shanahan is one of them.
I'm sorry, IT, I didn't hear you.
We have a couple of attendees. I'm not sure if Lisa Shanahan is one of them, but if you have any questions or want to comment, just raise your hands and I'll allow you to talk.
The virtual raise your hand.
Correct. Yeah.
Laurie,
And then if after they raise their hand and you unmute them, if you can please let us know who they are because we cannot see them on our screen.
Sure, we'll do. So far, I don't have anyone.
Oh,
Laurie Mirra just texted me. She's trying to join in right now.
Yeah, I see that Laurie Mirra is in.
Oh, she's in? Okay.
Yes. And Laurie Mirra, Lisa Shanahan, and Diane Pearson.
are you able to have one or each of them speak so we can move along?
And I haven't seen the digital hand raise, but I can. Do you know if these are people signed up to speak? Because usually.
Yes, Jeff, they are. They had a lot of trouble trying to get on. So if you could just let them speak, she's probably having trouble finding the hand raising.
Okay, so I will start with Diane Pearson.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Diane, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi. Oh, hi.
Yeah, we
Hi,
can hear you.
Do you have video?
Excuse me?
Do you have any video or no?
I should be. Everything else is working. Oh. There wasn't anything in particular that I was going to speak about. I was sort of invited to listen in. Laurie Mirra invited me as I am. She had asked me to be a co-tree advisory liaison to Village Creek. And so she didn't say that, there was anything in particular for me to speak about unless anyone wants to hear about my experience.
Well, Diane, first of all, I just want to say that you're welcome to come to every meeting, every Tuesday that we have a meeting. It's open to the public, so you're absolutely welcome to come. And if you are interested in being a liaison, I think that's wonderful. We're in the process of creating an application and a little bit of a different vetting process, and you're more than welcome to throw your name into the hat. And we would, if everything works out, we'd love to work with you.
Great. Okay.
So after the meeting, I can, well, if you know the website, all of our emails are on there, and you can just, state your case and that you want to put your name into consideration for a liaison. And we're actually putting people in areas of need, not necessarily where they live. We're, kind of working through all of this right now, but again, more than welcome to speak with you more about that.
Okay, great. I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next person, I see Lisa Shanahan has no comment, she says, but the next person is Laurie Mirra. I can allow her in. Laurie, if you can go ahead and unmute, please.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm said to Diane that I would segue with her for a while, and then she wanted me to kind of do it with her, and then she would kind of go off on her own, but I think she's fine. Otherwise, I just wanted to say that we had a small grant for Woodward Park, and we got a lot of shrubs and 5 trees for this spring. However, it seems like there's not any interest in terms of the trees in the park or something. So I was wondering if we couldn't get them in the park, whether you would like to have them for Woodward Avenue. That's all. Maybe in front of 151 W.B. Mason.
Laurie, you said they're part of a grant. What was the grant outline? Where were the trees slated to go? When we write a grant, do you need to be very specific with what your outcomes are going to be? So you can't.
Well, it was part of it's part of a larger 3,000 tree, native trees and bushes in the watershed. It's an event that what we went through One Tree Planted, and we found a donor in Fairfield County that was interested. And so we, we've gotten these small grants all along. We've gotten them from FactSet. We've had them from One Tree Planted last year. And so it was a small grant for this spring, part of a larger group of grants. And I just don't know what to do with the 5 trees. I mean, I don't want to just not take them. So
Laurie,
you have to do whatever you outlined in the grant. It would be unethical for us to take trees and put them in a different location. So you have to work that out with the granting agency or person.
okay, they're happy to put them anywhere. They're just giving us the money. So it's not like, I mean, they've allocated us this money. Okay.
When you say that you have a grant for it, you don't have like a formal grant application and a formal process that you went through. You have someone who donated you money. I'm just trying to understand.
Yes, we went through One Tree Planted, the organization One Tree Planted, and they find donors sometimes in the area. And they found a donor that is going to sponsor maybe like 10 different projects. And so we've divided them up, and I created one for Woodward Park and the entry to Village Creek area. And it's fine. I mean, if we haven't, I guess until now, we haven't had a problem. I mean, Rich has been sort of the liaison with Parks and Recs, and we've gotten these grants and have gone to him, and he said, yeah, let's, we can put the trees in or whatever. So, the money there, the trees are there, and there's going to be more money and trees that are going to come along. I just don't know.
So Laurie, let me have a question.
Yeah.
You had asked me to take a quick look at planting at the pump station electric house.
Yes.
Is that part of this grant?
Actually, it's no, it's not part of that grant. No,
Okay.
it's
Because
a
I still
different,
intend to do
that's
that.
a much
I didn't think
larger.
I thought
that's-
that schedule was further out.
Okay, couple
Well,
of quick things that we just want to mention, Lori, too. Erica is 110% correct. You've got to be very careful with the language in the grants, because if it's not allowed in the grants, you can end up getting into some issues. And that's something obviously we wouldn't want to be involved in if there's a city parcel or city right away involved. So we just got to make very sure that the terms of the grants allow something, because it could come back to bite us, and we don't want that. As far as the, I guess, Peter, you've approached Peter now to do something in the Woodward Park?
Just a
No,
suggestion.
that was the Norwalk River Watershed had asked him, had talked about it last year. By the way, I guess it's not a grant, it's a donation. Let's put it that way. It's
Yeah.
more a donation. It's a
Okay.
difference. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
There
what I
was a big
asking,
grant.
Laurie, if it was a grant or a donation, but even a donation is going to have stipulations. And so we'd like to see the wording of whatever the agreement was. If it's not a formal grant, there has to be some agreement. We need to know where the funds are sitting right now, how the trees were
The
purchased.
Norwalk River Watershed Association is the one who's spearheading it, and they're getting the money from the donor. Okay, so the NRWA is.
Okay, and it sounds like that's where the trees need to be planted within the watershed. So we'll revisit this. I think I'm getting flagged here that 3 minutes is up.
Oh.
But it's something that that Laurie definitely submit for consideration. I mean, you know, as a tree advisory committee, we certainly don't want to turn down trees, but we have to be very careful that we're handling these donated trees ethically, and we don't want to have them planted someplace where it wasn't intended, and down the line have to remove them or anything else. So we just need to be a little careful with that.
And the same thing, once again, too, is anything with the park area too, we've got to make sure that Parks and Rec and Nick Roberts and Ken Hughes are on board with it for their master plan of the park area, plus also maintenance purposes too. So we just got to make sure.
We've always gone
Hey,
through them,
Paul,
and we're in contact with them. And we've
one of the things too
gone
is
through them. It's just that it doesn't seem like they're interested in planting right now. So whatever.
Right.
I
Well,
just
we're
thought throughout the idea
advised-
that maybe the tree advisory would like to, you know, use.
Right, no, but this is what you need to understand, Laurie.
I
is that-
understand what you're saying. It's fine. I hear you.
No.
It's fine.
Yeah, well, continue, please, Eric. I want everybody to hear what you have to say.
No, I was going to say that we're an advisory committee. And that term is really key. We don't make all of these decisions, especially undercutting Parks and Rec or Anthony Carr, or if these people make these decisions, we cannot go above them. We're an advisory committee, and we work together and in concert with. We don't override them in any way. I just wanted to make that point. So if they already made a decision based on the trees that you have, then we don't have any jurisdiction to override their decision.
Yeah,
hey,
I just,
Erica,
can I say one thing?
of course.
It's, there's been no decision. The money is just there. And we wanted to put it in the park, but I'm just saying Woodward Avenue has nothing to do with the park, right? It's Woodward Avenue more the city property, right? Rather than park recreation and parks. That's what I was saying, is that if you wanted, we could maybe donate those trees to the city instead of recreation and parks, to DPW or whatever.
Okay, sure. Thank you. We'll discuss it further. Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Chris?
Erica, Paul, thank you. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late, but anything planted around that pump station at the park needs to be approved by the WPCA. It doesn't matter if
So
Nick
for-
Roberts approves it. It doesn't matter if anyone approves it. It has to be approved by the WPCA board to plant a tree within, I don't know, 25 or 30 feet of that pump station.
Ken is aware of what nothing's been done yet. So-
But Ken doesn't have the authority to even approve a tree around the pump station.
gotta
That's
be
the
a joint-
WPCA. It's a whole different board.
Right, well, but he would know, but he would also know the process, so nothing would be certain.
Yes, okay.
We
Well,
got to
I
be
assume
careful
it-
because there's a force main that runs through that property, as well as, like Chris is talking about, that pump station. So in this case, it would have to be a joint conversation and agreed by both bodies.
So Ken gave a footprint of where it was allowable, so he was aware nothing's been done. So, you know, that has not moved anywhere.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. We have the minutes that Paul sent out to everyone from our last month's meeting. I'd like to move to approve them unless anyone has any comments or sees anything glaring that needs to be changed or updated.
I read through them. They look great. Good job on the minutes, and I motion to approve.
I can't argue, I wasn't here.
I was there. Am I allowed to second?
Sure.
I second. I thought they were great.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is Paul. There were some illegal tree removals to report.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just mention a couple of quick things, but Chris did a lot of the work with the law office related to this particular item. It's 9 Bel Air Road, and basically it's been now referred to the law office, and I've got the information in front of me, but I'd refer to Chris since he did a lot of the work on it, so.
I can share the actual motion filed at State Superior Court by our law department. And I gave the guy an opportunity to work with us and possibly just go after Lato, the contractor that did the work, and he never got back to me. So now the city is going for the full value of up to 5 times the full value of the tree, and also replanting all of the trees that were taken down. So I'm thinking it's going to cost that homeowner about 60 grand at minimum, when he could have worked with us and worked against Lato, who the contractor was, who has a history of taking down trees illegally in the city. So it's too late. The wheel is already turning. And at this point, we'll go through the whole court proceeding, and we will put something in the paper letting all residents know what could happen when you take down illegal trees. I mean, I think that we need to take the gloves off with some of these people because they're just repeat offenders.
And
I can share that motion with the group. It'd be easier for me to read it than to read it. Erica, Rich, Peter, Andrew, if he's on, I will certainly share that motion with you guys, or Paul can, because he has it.
I have it. There's multiple counts, and just on one of the items too, the fines are $250 a tree, and then a replacement cost is $750. So right there's $1,000 per tree. And as Chris mentioned, and I have no problem saying this because we've talked to him multiple times about it and he keeps doing it. Mr. Lato is a notorious permit violator with tree removals, fill and excavation, not getting proper permits. This is a guy that even did work across the street from City Hall's driveway without a permit one time. So it's at this point time that he was brought to justice for this.
Well, I want to thank Chris and the people that you work with, because you know, sometimes our hands are tied with some of these illegal trees. So, you know, thanks for I know it's a lot of time and more on your plate to go forward with this, but we appreciate it, because you're right. I think that, you know, putting it in the paper is a good thing, because people need to know some of the potential ramifications for illegal cuttings.
And Matt Sapenza from the Assistant Corp Counsel did the work. And just as you mentioned, Erica, that's a 7-page document, the complaint, to be filed in Superior Court. So it is work for them. And
a lot of work.
Thank you, Chris.
A lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, if you want to just continue, you're up next with Eversource tree trimming.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to share a rather large file, because I scanned the map that Eversource gave us, and the file is, as I said, rather large. So I'm going to try and share it and see if it works. So if it doesn't work, then I'll let you know, and I'll let you know to see if it does come through.
Maybe we'll let you know if we can see it.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest issue.
If it doesn't show up, maybe you could email it to us.
I will. I will. So I'm going to see right now if I can share it, and we'll see if it works. Can you guys see the file?
The colors don't come through very well, Paul.
Well, yeah, well, it was a markup that Eversource gave us, but I'll blow up the areas as we go through them.
Oh, okay, you can enlarge it.
But can you see the map?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, that's easy enough. We can enlarge it. That's not a problem. All right, I'm going to start off just in the key up here. Basically, Eversource has come in and they said that they're looking to do 2.86 miles of backbone trimming and 6.65 of lateral. And what it is basically up in these two categories here, it comes out to a total of 9.51 miles. That's the combination of these two numbers here. And that's all scheduled maintenance trimming. And in that area, basically they prune the branches within 8 feet to the side, 10 feet below, and 15 feet overhead for hazards. Then they're going to do another area that's 19 miles, and there's a survey, and that's the mid-cycle survey. And what that'll be is basically they take and they walk through, and anything that they did the backbone trimming on 2 years ago, they go back and they look to see if there are any dead trees as a result of the work that they've done. So that's the green area. So I'm going to go over now and show you the blue through the city. It's up in the area of Belden Hill and Old Belden Court, Grist Mill, around in that area. Then we got some other areas down below, and I'm going to scroll down and zoom out for a minute, and then I'll zoom back in when we get to the other areas of that. You're down in the West Norwalk area, and it's Derby, Uhas, areas around Bonnybrook, over off of Old Rock in that area. And it's not on Old Rock itself. It's Bel Air, it's Philo, Redcoat, and Fox Run. And the entrance to Charles Marshall Drive there's a little bit of work in that area where the power line is. They've got that listed now. The other area where we've got the backbone trimming is Philo, Richards, Down, and a section of Flax Hill Road. The rest of the area is all basically the survey area, and it's at various locations around the city. And like I said, that's basically just walking the 19 miles, 19.47 miles, and looking for any dead trees that were left as a result of the work that they had done before. And I can blow them up if you want me to go through them and hand around, or leave it at that. So if anybody's got any questions, there is a section that's down in Rowayton.
Can you just go back up to the top where the key is?
Yep. So this is all survey area here, so it's only checking what was done, but I will go back up to the key.
I have a question, Paul.
Yep.
When they're doing that surveyed area where they're going back in looking for dead trees, do they go onto private property as well, or do they stay within the city right away?
Basically, they're identifying any tree or part of a tree that is dead as a result of what they've done in the past. So it sounds from what they've mentioned that it would be right away and potential hazards on the private property.
And if they find something that is not doing well or is dead, what do? They replace it? Is that what you're saying?
They will have to post it. It'll be posted. They would contact Chris and Jose Ortiz, and then the tree would be posted and then removed as a normal posting would be done.
And would that tree be replaced?
At this point, they wouldn't replace it, no, but we've also, and I'm going to talk about something a little later related to Arbor Day for one replacement, but normally they wouldn't replace it under the wires, no.
One of the things too, Paul, you mentioned the Charles Marshall Drive, the trees that are under the high power wires at Oak Hills have been removed by Eversource.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came out of that I completely agree with, and we are gonna fight harder against Eversource, is it is not fair to take down an 80-year-old tree and replace it with a sapling that's 15 feet tall and 4 inches or 6 inches around.
That's the area.
yeah, we need to do a better job of telling Eversource that it's a 1-for-1 tree is not a fair trade. It's more like a 5-for-1 tree for the trees that need to come down.
Oh, do we have a caliper replacement list? Or in other words, many other municipalities will have, you take down a 20-inch tree, you've got to replace that with, X number of calipers. I mean, that's
Peter, we
really-
don't right now, but I'm in the process. I've read through Greenwich's tree program. I'm reading through other Fairfield County municipality municipal tree programs, and I do think that we as a group, a collective group between the Tree Advisory Committee, the Norwalk Tree Alliance, the River Watershed, different groups, the Land Trust, we need to create a more comprehensive tree program in Norwalk.
for
And
replacement.
Anthony started it, but I want, like, we need input from everybody to do that. So if you guys see something that we should just kind of jot a note down and make it a little bullet point, and collectively we can come up with something. And I've been tasked, just so you guys know, by Anthony Carr to come up with that very concept. I have 1 year to do it, to create an urban forestry program in the city of Norwalk, and that would be part of it. So me and Paul are going to be working on that, and we want buy-in from everybody, please.
Yeah, no, I think Chris, going to programs from other municipalities is a great thing. Why reinvent the wheel? We could see what other people are doing and springboard off of that. So absolutely, I'm sure everybody would, be more than willing to help add to that, so that you can have as comprehensive a plan as possible.
And at a very start, I mean, I would say, try and make it up in terms of the overall diameter of the trees too, that if we've got a 24 and we're putting trees back, then they've got to do 8 of them at a very minimum.
That's what Chris and Peter were saying. Yeah, I agree with that completely.
And start pressing a little bit on the utilities, because this is going to continue to be a problem.
Well, I think Eversource, and I'm going to mention something a little further down the agenda, that I think Eversource is beginning, and Chris was at the meeting too, for the permit meeting, is looking to work with us and is more than willing to help. And I'm not going to say any more right now because it's going to give away something further down the agenda.
So while you're on the topic, I'd ask my committee members to take a ride up Comstock and Buttery into Carter Street, New Canaan, to see what Eversource is doing with this resiliency line in New Canaan. And my issue here is that moving forward, the next time I get a permit from Eversource in a year from now or 2, they're going to talk about backbone pruning and lines that they've just elevated by 5 and 7 feet. So here you've got a tree canopy that's been sort of trimmed over 30 years to meet a criteria. They've changed the criteria. This team on the ground, this agreement to move forward is not going to be visible in 2 more years when they come back with this back pruning. So, my mind is I've got 2 years to get a replacement program in place, so that when they come up Comstock Hill again and other places in the city, there's a replacement value. Opposite side of the street is fine. But I would ask my committee members to take a ride up and see how long those double poles are going to be in place. And they're more than 5 feet high.
Peter, one of the things that we can do is, from when we get the permit from Eversource, typically we sign it the day that we meet, and we do that. But maybe a better plan would be to kind of follow up on what you just said and tell Eversource, hey, we need some time to go look at these trees, the ones that you want to remove, and get a value for them, and be a little bit fairer to the city. Right now, it's all Eversource, but I think to your point, you're right. We should say, hey, this is an indigenous tree to Connecticut, and it's 100 years old, and you can't get away with just planting a sapling and replace it.
And along those lines, and the key issue here is it changes the value of my property on Comstock. It changes property values and willing and desire to live in Norwalk. So that's my primary concern, that tree removals are geared towards, not just the need of the utility, it's also about degrading real estate value in the city. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, no, agreed. And there's plenty of literature to support both commercial and private property tree-lined streets and what that means from a real estate standpoint, a mental health standpoint, safety standpoint, and more. So definitely in agreement. So Chris, you want us to individually email you with different ideas? I mean, I don't want you to get flooded with things. Should there be something very specific we put in the subject line maybe, so you can index them at a later date and look at them more easily?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take all of the emails that you guys get, but honestly, I was planning on like talking about them for the first time as a collective group. So I can take everybody's ideas and then Paul can add it as an agenda item to the the TAC committee meetings moving forward. And we could all discuss it and all have a seat at the table. I think that that's where we're going to have our best bang go moving forward.
I understand. At the tree summit.
Correct. So the tree summit is going
to.
Yeah. So the tree summit, I just had a meeting with Anthony before I hopped on this, and it's either going to be the 16th or the 23rd, and it's going to be a smaller group. It's not going to be the full city, everyone. It's going to be like the TAC committee, city staff, and like Lisa Shanahan of the council moving forward. And then we will have a larger tree summit where everybody can participate.
The one
That
on the
makes
agenda we're
perfect
talking
sense.
about tonight is a planning meeting.
Right. That makes perfect sense, Chris. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And what
And I
I'll
thank
do
you
then,
guys for your effort.
Erica, what I'll do is I'll probably put an item on the agenda then for this type of thing for the next maybe 4 or 5 months, every month. And that way there, if anybody has anything to add to it, great. If not, we move on to the next item. But that way there, it doesn't fall through the cracks.
Agreed. Can you stop sharing your screen? I can't see the.
I'm going to, yep. Has everybody got any other questions related to this? No, okay. All right, what I'm gonna.
Thanks for sharing that, Paul.
What I wanted to mention is basically this permit, we met with Eversource on the 25th of February. They had some tweaks to make in the maps and they got me those maps yesterday.
That was 5 foot above.
It is 5, Peter. We checked it.
Good.
So anyway, if we've taken that map that we had yesterday and that's what you just saw. So that's where we are right now in the permit. Chris will be signing the permit and issuing it to Eversource.
Okay. Do we have anything new with the capital tree planting program? Agenda item number 6 or?
I hope so. Planting locations.
I'll go first, if you don't mind, because I volunteered to do Aiken Street.
Awesome.
So I reached out to Ken Hughes because a lot of the trees where there's a big void of canopy is on the West Rock School grounds. So they're currently doing some field construction there, and that's
Yes.
trees would be the most beneficial, just inside the line but they would also function as street trees, and the power lines are on the opposite side of the road, so they won't interfere with Eversource. So I asked Ken what the schedule was for out there and when he could meet with me, and if we could look at the site for planting trees along the fence line where they don't interfere with the new field that they're building. We're going to meet later this week, but the field construction isn't slated to be completed until June. So that defers all the spring planting out there till fall, but I still want to move forward with it.
Great. How many trees do you think, Rich?
I'm thinking if we go all the way up into the school parking lot, which I don't see why we couldn't unless Ken tells me otherwise, probably 20 trees. So it might be a 2-phase planting program where we do part in 2021 and then the other completion of it in 2022. So we're not putting all our trees on one street and not spreading them out throughout the city.
Is that on
Hey, Rich,
Aiken Street? That's Aiken Street, Rich?
Yes.
Not
Do the
West
20
Rock.
do the 20 trees include the 10 that are scheduled to be replacement trees for the 10 taken down?
No, it does not include those. It's gonna be above and beyond that.
And also too.
With the 10
different-
going in and then the 20 supplemental, there could potentially be 30 new trees total going in there, but I need to verify the location spots so that the 10 that are going in and then the supplemental trees so that they're properly spaced.
And
That-
we,
that-
and would
that's
also
great.
just make sure the budgets too, because we have like 2 or 3 different spots where it could be coming out of, because as Chris mentioned, there are trees included in the project that were bid to go in along the area for screening. I think there was like green giant arborvitaes, but then we've got stuff, if we're gonna do it through the committee, and then also Parks and Rec has money for the site there too, as part of their budget. So we'd have to see where we take the money from and organize that, and then decide, ultimately pick the planting plan and then decide where we're gonna pay for it from.
Yeah, so it's becoming a little more complex than what I originally anticipated, but I think planning with Ken and finding out where the screening trees are going and where the street trees can go and combining that, it's gonna take a little longer, but I think at the end goal, we can make it work out even better for the neighborhood.
And
Hey, Paul,
Rich,
can
we've
you
got
share-
engineering's doing the administration for Parks and Rec on that project for the construction. We've got copies of the drawing, so I have drawings that I can share.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're probably.
that's what I was gonna ask you, Paul, if you can share the drawing that shows the replacement trees along the parking lot to buffer the condos over there, because we did get protests on those trees when they were first posted. And as part of the settlement to have them withdraw the protest was the replanting of trees as a buffer between the school new parking lot that's gonna be as part of that field and the condos over there. And just while we're talking about it, we have the same issue on the corner of Prospect and Grandview for the Jefferson School project that's going on. And there were trees taken down that I was unaware of. And we did get a protest today. It's too late, but I am not gonna tell the people that they don't have their say because they protested them too late. Because honestly, it was like a secret project and the trees were posted by Ken Hughes and he didn't tell anyone that they were posted, and they pretty much clear cut the whole corner of Grandview and Prospect behind Jefferson School.
So Paul, can you make a
Got
note
another
of that?
location.
Maybe we can put some trees back there from our budget, or maybe work with Parks and Rec to kind of replace some of that?
Yeah,
Jefferson's on what, Riverside? It runs parallel with Route 7, right?
Yeah, it's right on Van Buren Avenue, Peter.
Yeah.
And the back of the school is the corner of Prospect and Grandview.
Because the front of the school does not look good. I mean, we've got crab apples that have been ill for years. I mean, that would be
I
a
agree.
whole-scale replacement. I mean, that's downtown, that's highly visible.
And if we
Yeah,
did that,
yeah.
just out of curiosity, would the maintenance crew that takes care of the grounds of the school then take on the maintenance of those trees? That wouldn't put added strain on the city. That would be the school that would do that. How does that work?
the school, basically the maintenance of the school,
Mhm.
all of the grounds are done by Parks and Rec. Trees, any of the lawn cutting, any of that kind of stuff is all done by Rex and Park. So it is basically the city. It's not the Board of Ed that does separate stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think the added work, Erica, would be just keeping them watered post our contract.
Right,
Takes about
right.
3 years to get those trees established.
Agreed. Okay,
Otherwise, it wouldn't be
that's it.
really more.
Okay,
Okay.
great, thanks. Agenda item number 7 is the tree summit, which I think we've discussed at some level. Is there a date for that set?
At this point, and Chris may have just talked with Anthony since I last talked to him, but basically, this was just to let you guys know that basically there's gonna be a tree summit planning meeting, and the date was still to be determined. The final time in the agenda was still being worked on between Anthony Carr and Lisa Shanahan. So they were working on that together. So it's basically letting you know that this is a planning meeting for a summit.
And the dates on that, Erica, would have been, the 2 dates are the 16th of April or the 23rd of April.
Oh, okay, that's the first I'm hearing that.
Yeah, the final dates.
The
Okay.
16th or the
The 23rd.
23rd of April?
So in one sentence or less, what is the purpose of the summit, the goal of the summit?
try and let everyone, all of the stakeholders know exactly what the city is doing for tree programs in terms of tree planting, our liaisons, across the board.
Who's the
our tree
stakeholders? What,
programs.
who are stakeholders? What does that mean?
Taxpayer.
Well,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's the taxpayers, and honestly, I think that the council is shown the need to be a little bit more transparent on the Eversource permit and trees removed in the city right away and projects. I mean, honestly, it's like pulling teeth to get redevelopment or any department to collaborate about trees. And it's not just the trees, it's the root system for these projects. I mean, they're doing all this construction. And I
It's
do
the
think,
systems. It's about systems.
but I definitely think that as a group, as part of our master plan for our urban forest is to change our ordinances a little bit and say, hey, maybe you have to put a $10,000 bond up when you're doing a construction project around city trees for 3 years, because if they fail within the 3 years of you doing your project, we have at least money that we can replant with. I don't think that that's too much to ask.
How about requiring a tree protection plan on every permit that someone has to pull?
I agree, but
It's that simple.
changing ordinances in this city is like, honestly,
it's
I don't
tough.
want to say anything because
Right. Or a percentage
speak out
of
of turn.
the project, or a percentage of the project as opposed to just a straight dollar amount, you know, because some
Correct.
projects are bigger than others. Chris, are the 16th and the 23rd, are those engraved in stone?
No,
The
no.
only
So
reason the only reason, and I'm fine with Fridays, and you know, I know there's a lot of moving parts to coordinate a meeting with so many people, but those 2 weeks I'm going to be traveling for business, and I don't know how my internet's going to be, and it just sounds like something that you know, especially the initial meeting is something that I probably would like to be in on. If there's some flexibility with the 9th or the 30th, if not, you know, we'll figure it out.
No, you should be, and as soon as we get as soon as I'm done talking, I'm gonna text Anthony and let him know like some alternate dates besides the 16th, because honestly, you really should be a part of that initial meeting on the ground floor moving forward, and Paul and Peter and Rich and you guys do a lot, and you absolutely should be on the ground floor of that initiative.
And
Okay.
I sent the information to
You're
Anthony
traveling,
this
it's
afternoon
something-
about you at the 14th asking, so he was aware of that, but it went out today for him for that one too. And one of the biggest
Cindy,
things
you
is
as
just
well.
getting the people together and letting everyone know what's going on for the programs that we do. Because a lot of the stuff that they're interested in and asking about, we've already done or we're already doing.
Yeah, I'll just give you a really quick example, Peter. Somebody had reached out to me a month or two ago and said that they got a flyer from the Yale New Haven area, that if you want a tree on your property, that the city of New Haven will sponsor it, and it's this great program. And someone called me up and brought it to my attention and said, hey, you know, we should do this in Norwalk. And I said, well, we do. You know,
We've been doing it for 20 years.
We have a budget to put trees on public property if the owner agrees to it. And so it's just a way to let each other, in terms of other organizations, know what we're doing, but let the general population know what we're
So
doing.
there's two parallels here. One is it's sort of public awareness. Chris is talking about something slightly different. It's city awareness. It's about the city internal operations of the city protecting tree planting, which, you know, the departments don't really still, you know, put those systems in place from reviews on out. So Chris is talking about something a little bit different. So the summit, so the summit has several operational goals.
Yeah, the summit is going to try to tackle the ordinance issue and as a collective group in the city, and also the transparency to honestly to highlight some of the work that you have done already and that the city has done already that the residents don't know about. Because there are a lot of people out there with the impression that the city just gives carte blanche to Eversource to do whatever they want to do, and you know, they can pretty much do whatever, and that's not the case. And you guys have done tremendous amounts of work to identify where replanting needs to take place, regardless of the neighborhood where there's a need. And I think that the work that you do, we can hopefully get more people involved and more neighborhood liaisons, and be transparent about how many trees are coming down, and eventually put the layer up on the city's DPW website to show where we've replanted, to show where we've taken trees down, to be transparent, so it doesn't look like there's this conspiracy to remove every tree in the city of Monroe.
Or that any of us are operating in a vacuum.
Correct.
Exactly.
Right.
And open up the silos so that there's a conduit running between the silos. And everybody knows what's going on and what's being done.
That would be nice.
Yep.
Like that.
Great. So great. I think it's a great idea, and we look forward to finalize date, time, and agenda, and working collaboratively for sure. Any updates on the Arbor Day celebration for 2021?
Okay, we've got some interesting news based on the meeting with Eversource that we talked about. And as everyone was aware, there was trees that were taken down out at Oak Hills. And when we met with them related to the permit this year, we talked, and one of the things they actually volunteered and said that they wanted to get involved in an Arbor Day celebration for the city, and they were interested in planting and possibly doing some stuff related to that. So being that we've had this year a lukewarm reception about the schools still allowing people to go onto the property to plant trees for Arbor Day, we said maybe there's a great opportunity here. So what we were looking at doing is basically Eversource is interested in doing a replanting plan out at Oak Hills. They said that they would pay for some of that. We're going to see if we can't get them to pay for all of that if we can. And we're talking about a group of trees, not just 2 or 3 trees. We're looking to see if maybe we can get maybe 16 trees, 20 trees to be replanted out there. So Nick Roberts and we were going to work on getting a plan together of where we would put those trees. And when they were planted, even if it isn't on Arbor Day, we would videotape it. And then at that point, through a Zoom platform, try and work with the schools to have it brought into the classroom. And we've already asked the mayor, and they said that he would do it. We've asked Alan if he would come as the president of the Tree Alliance, and he said that he would, and have several people speak like we've done at the schools before, but it would all be through a Zoom platform. And then we're working with the Board of Education because the superintendent, Dr. Estrella, said that she wanted to be involved and would participate with it. So we want to see if we can do that kind of a thing, take care of doing a planting out at Oak Hills instead of a school this year, fulfill what we said we would do for replanting due to the trees being taken down out there by Eversource, and then stream it all to the kids. And I have a meeting with the Board of Education, a planning meeting on the 26th of March to determine their role and whether they would basically do a Zoom platform to one classroom or all of the grammar school classrooms. They're making that decision. So it'll be a little different than what we've done in the past, but it could be very productive and also give the learning opportunity to the school kids and maybe more than one class.
Paul, that sounds like a great idea. I think maybe when working with the Department of Education, you could find out how much time they are willing to allot their classroom to this, because then you can always take whatever's filmed and edit it down to have highlights, because little minds get bored easily, and keep within the time range. And that's me with my teacher hat on.
Yeah, usually we would keep the whole presentation in the past to maximum 45 minutes at the most, and that included everything from start to finish.
I'm not sure that the schools have 45 minutes in the classroom. I think it might be 40 minutes and then they have to change classes. So I'm just saying, to, kind of maximize our impact, if we just get an idea with how much time the teacher's willing to let our program run, and then we kind of edit it down to make sure that it has, impact and the kids get to see from beginning to end.
So that's kind of what we were looking to do this year. It makes it work. It gets it to more people actually than we usually have done in the past, but we don't end up not having something again this year because of the whole COVID pandemic.
Well, the key issue here is getting Eversource to fess up. I like that.
Well, they volunteered. They actually brought it up and Chris was there. He witnessed the meeting too. They volunteered to us.
On my hat with the Mirra Parkway Advisory Committee, the issue of removing trees for Eversource along the Mirra Parkway has come up. And what I've asked ConDOT to do is think about every time Eversource asks them to remove a tree, there are replacements involved. So, keeping the mantra up, and I think that this is a good footstep towards that.
And this is exactly to Chris's point earlier, maybe Paul, instead of, we have a number 16 trees, it sounds like a lot, maybe we take 10 that are larger, so to Chris's point where it's not just a 1-for-1 tree, those trees that were taken down were some older growth. And maybe we go for less number, but more impact.
And that plan is still being worked on with Ken and Nick Roberts now. So when we get that plan, those final details will be worked out. And as I mentioned, Eversource volunteered and they actually said that they'd like to come and tell their story, that as arborists, they don't like just going and cutting the trees down either, but because of the reliability issues, they wanted to explain to the kids why they were doing what they were doing. So there's some understanding as to what the whole program is and their overall approach to it and why, and that'd educate the kids also with some of that too, which is another point of view that they could speak to, which was good. I was surprised, weren't you, Chris?
Yes. And Peter, to your point with ConDOT is I've had this argument with them that posting trees is a state law, not immune to ConDOT being exempt from that, and they refuse to post trees. I did get a concession from them that all trees within the city of Norwalk, non-I-95 or Merritt Parkway, so if it's Connecticut Avenue or Van Buren Avenue, they let us take the lead. They are city trees, not state trees. But along I-95 and the Merritt Parkway, their thing is we don't have to post them. We can take them down. There are trees. They pose a public health risk or whatever the case may be. So they are less than willing to work with us.
No, well, the Merritt Parkway's got its conservancy, which we sit on ConDOT pretty hard. So we're pretty, I-95, I have no jurisdiction.
Jim Barnes is a pretty good guy, but he gets his marching orders from someone else.
Yes, he does, and we talk often about it. Jim and I talk, we talk trees often.
Yeah.
So that's the update on what we're planning to do for Arbor Day, but I will keep everybody informed as we go along, and anybody that would like to be part of it or say anything, please let me know, and we'll be glad to try and work the program in.
Okay, sounds great, Paul. Thank you. I just want to keep us moving along because it's already 6:55 and we still have quite a few agenda items to cover. So the Tree City USA, I know we spoke last month that Norwalk was honored for the 17th year in a row, I believe.
That's correct.
Is there anything new to add to that?
Yes, I found out today and confirmed that we did get the Growth Award for the 15th consecutive year.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So those two items are real quick. We got both and we're on 2020 and we're on to 2021 now.
So the next item is a newsletter for the Tree Advisory Committee, and I think it kind of goes in concert with getting our mission out, our word out, and it's something that we can do digitally. I have a pretty decent size, what I call my environmental mailing list, people that I email if I have any lectures, like my Audubon Society lecture that's coming up. We can start, with that group, getting out a newsletter where we include, some of the items that are highlighted from our meetings, some things that we're working on, some plantings that we've done, just to keep everybody updated and informed. I know that Cindy is very creative, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would love if we'd all work together on a newsletter, but maybe Cindy, you can act as an editor, so to speak, where we can send our articles or whatever news clips we want to you, and you kind of format them and then send it out to the group for, I guess, everyone's approval, and then I'll email it out to my list. How does that sound?
I love that idea. I mean,
Okay.
it's one of my strengths.
Could we add to our website where you can sign up to subscribe for the newsletter?
Absolutely. Paul put me in touch with a gentleman who is in IT that has been doing all of those fancy schmancy things you see on our new website, like our cute pictures and everything. And he definitely said that we can put a link on there so that if people click on it, they can input their information if they want a tree on their property or more information. And then we're going to put a link on there for people who want the newsletter. So yes, your answer is yes, absolutely. We could do that.
I could definitely send Cindy some local articles whenever we're doing something pretty cool in the city, and take pictures of it and forward it to Cindy as well.
That would be great. That'd be great. And then eventually what I'd like to see is how we have a list of past minutes for our meetings. We could have a list of current and archives newsletters.
Well, meeting minutes are available online anyway, right?
Yeah, they're all online.
They are. So, but you know how we have like
No
links
link to them.
past minutes? So I'm thinking in my mind, I could see a list of our newsletter over time as well.
Yeah. Cindy, create a format that's simple and quick, because once you start writing, it takes time.
Yeah, eye-catching, one-page, colorful.
Keep
Yeah.
it short and sweet, because people
Short and
don't read
sweet.
anymore anyway.
Mm.
I completely agree with you. And we were thinking quarterly, no more than the 4 a year would probably be a good idea. And then we can kind of go from there.
Because having done sort of newsletter with the Silver Mine Community Association, I know they become very tough to get out the door. They become very laborsome.
Yeah.
Start off with a picture and a paragraph.
Very
Yes.
simple.
Yes. Agreed. All right, Alan, are you still with us?
I am. I just took a bite. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
Great discussion. Great discussion so far. It's been fantastic to listen to all of the different thoughts shared. I just wanted to add my 2 cents about the tree summit. The tree summit is something that was sort of the brainchild of Rob Fraser, actually. And he and Lisa started talking about this idea just in its infancy, and then immediately got some incredible support from Chris, from Anthony, from Paul. And so it just sort of began to domino effect into this idea of creating better alignment and better connections between the nonprofit groups that support environmental causes, the city staff that lead out on tree initiatives, and putting all the heads that work on those things into the same room so that we can work together. So we're looking forward to that.
Hey,
Tree
Erica.
Alliance,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alan.
Tree Alliance is working hard on a number of different agendas. We had set out to have a public tree planting activity on April 24th, which would be a Saturday where you would volunteer to come plant trees. We had selected a few sites. There were a lot of complications with those sites. I won't mention those sites. And so we've been looking at other locations, trying to find things that are both accessible, visible, public, and yet don't have a lot of red tape to get approved. So we have landed at recently at 3 different sites. One is Elder House, which is in near the First Congregational Church, down kind of between Wall Street and the Green. We met with the First Taxing District to talk about that because they own some portion of that, and they've given us verbal approval. We need to go through their formal approval process to get that approval to plant 4 trees there. And then we've also talked with Nathan Hale School about planting some trees for the first time ever at a middle school. This was Paul's idea, which was a really good idea. We've only ever planted at elementary schools. And so the thought was maybe we ought to reach out to the middle school they're extremely excited about it. We're meeting them next week to pick some locations. I don't know if it's going to coincide with Arbor Day. It may be in and around late April, early May. Additionally, we're meeting with the Norwalk Hospital. We have contacted the head chaplain, and we have a site walkthrough on Friday because our thoughts and hearts have been turned toward healthcare workers and what they've been going through during the pandemic. And the chaplain has told us that rather than counseling hospital visitors, she has been counseling hospital workers over the last year, and expressed that they really need our support. So we're going to be doing a planting at Norwalk Hospital. I don't know the quantity of trees that we're doing there. That'll be sometime in April, maybe May, and might coincide with National Nurses Day is what we're looking at for that.
Nice.
We're also looking at expansion of our third taxing district program, which we just got another grant from them to continue on that effort as well. Sorry, sixth taxing district, as well as the third taxing district. And this is kind of exciting news. Our board voted for the first time ever in our history to match the grant that the third taxing district gives us. So they give us a certain amount of money every year, and our board has decided that we will give the same amount of money out of our own bank account to match what they've given us.
That's
so that we
awesome.
can double the amount of planting that happens in East Norwalk. So that'll be great.
Congratulations.
So lots of good things
Awesome.
happening. We're a very, very active, busy group of people, and I think there's just great things ahead.
And
Alan,
I
can
actually,
you confirm with me on the 24th, only because I was on a meeting earlier today with Norwalk Community College Cares, Robert and May, and he mentioned that we needed to start to rally students as volunteers for you on that day. So if anything's changed or you fine tune anything, just let me know. So, or even better yet, just reach out to him so he doesn't send out misinformation.
Yes, thank you. I was hoping to have absolute data to share tonight on that. We're very close. We just met with First Taxing District again today, and I think we have Dominic's blessing now. So once we know that for sure, that will be one location, and potentially the hospital will be the other location. So unfortunately, everything got thrown into the blender when the two sites that we had selected just came with way too much complication, which then set us back to going on another hunt for other places. One thing that one of my wish lists, that's something that maybe all of us have been wanting. Is there any way to create a running list or some sort of centralized document that tracks places that need trees? And so that when we have these meetings and everyone's sort of picking their brain, who does anyone know where we could plant a tree, 3 trees, 6 trees? And we come up with these ideas, and then we make a few phone calls, and it's like, no, you can't do it there. That's a terrible place. Or that has a ton of red tape, or that's already been planted up a million times. Don't go there. And we feel like we just kind of keep hitting these roadblocks. And so it would be neat to have some sort of database that we can just keep ahead of ourselves. Like, these are all the locations that as we get more money and more time, we can continue to go planting at those locations. I don't know if anything like that's ever been done.
Actually, Alan, a decade ago, we did a strategic plan where we identified main corridors in the city. That has not been updated. That's sort of what you're asking.
Yeah.
but
And
it's a strategic plan to put them in an area, though, is one thing, but getting permission from the actual property owners and the neighbors is a total nother subject. And Rich was talking about that a year or so ago. And what we need is people to go out and knock on doors and find 200 locations so that we can build the database that Alan's talking about.
Right. Well, I don't even know if a database would really be the way to go, because it's such a dynamic landscape. It's really ever changing. I mean, we could
Right.
talk an address where we think needs trees, and the house could be sold. It's a rental. It's not the homeowner that owns it, and that's who we need the permission from. So I think they need to be on a case-by-case basis. And what we do as a committee is literally drive around and target areas. And that's why we enlist liaisons, because we're only a few people who can only do so much. So that's where the rationale for having the liaisons is. It's really kind of to increase our boots on the ground. in an ever-changing landscape. So, I mean, I'm a person who loves, databases and charts and graphs and stuff, but unfortunately for that, I'm not sure that would work in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so to team tag the two concepts, the strategic basis would say that there are target areas. And one area in my mind off the top is Main Street, sort of North Main Street between Main and Ward and Aiken Street. I mean, this is a place where it's middle income. There are very little trees. The streetscapes are barren. I mean, I would say a strategic plan would target those areas. Then, to Alan's point, these are areas where we'd start knocking on doors. But the big picture is to focus on an area where we
The
have.
Westcog study, I think, also targeted areas in general that were, less tree canopy, higher impervious surfaces. And so, I mean, that's definitely a starting point. But it's going to be a lot of legwork to address some of these businesses that are in those areas, especially if they're the larger businesses.
Well, let's take this back to the tree summit. If the tree summit knows where there are areas that are targeted, then when Public Works and the Parks Department looks at projects in these areas, they know that the infrastructure has to support these trees as well.
Mm-hmm.
So without understanding the infrastructure supporting the green growth, we can knock on doors where we want. But it's building toward the summit needs to target, how do you build a city that's going to welcome the infrastructure support tree growth?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we come up with the physical problem. Then we have the problem not on my property. So there's sort of two levels.
But
West Main
aren't there-
Street's another
aren't there
area.
plenty of city property, Paul? There's plenty of like Alan, you mentioned middle schools, and I'm kind of thinking in my head, you look at Ponus, there's not one single street tree at that school. Nathan Hale,
So true.
there's not one single street. And honestly, since I've been involved in our tree program, more trees have been taken down in the corridor of Highland Avenue from Wilson Avenue to Roten Middle School than anywhere else in the city. We've taken a lot of trees down, and Roten Middle School itself can use some street trees along that Highland Avenue. So maybe while we're trying to get private people to grant us the opportunity to plant in front of their property, there are plenty of city properties that we can plant on that we can kind of eliminate most of the red tape because they're already owned by the city.
So Chris, everything you just said, I just want to second 1,000 times over. That is how I feel. We have burned ourselves out knocking doors of homeowners just to not even be able to find a place or have people complain they don't want to pick up leaves. And there are so many places that I want to build those bridges with the city so that we could email the city, Tree Alliance could email the city and say, hey, we've got a budget. We can do 20 trees. Give us some places you guys can give us quick approvals so we can get them in the ground, And that's kind of where I want to build that connection.
It to you. Yes.
Yeah.
And the other two of the areas too, we talked about, and just to your example of not being able to work, Alan, and this answers a question you had. I was able to talk with David Westmoreland today about over at the Historical Society building on Mill Hill. We thought on the west side of the driveway, there might be 2 or 3 trees that we could put in there. But that phone call today yielded a conversation that within the next year or so, they're going to be regrading that whole area and redoing the driveway entrance. So good idea. It would have worked and he would have loved it, but he said wrong time.
Yeah. So to sum it up, I think.
I'm sorry, Alan, go ahead.
To sum it up, I guess my point is I think that we are working too hard to find places to plant trees. And I think that it's because I don't really know what the city's working on or where your needs are because I don't know your operations very well. And so that's where the Tree Summit comes in, is that we kind of walk hand in hand, step by step. And I know, like Chris just said, it's funny you say that. I noticed driving by Roten the other day and thought, gosh, that's a great place to plant trees. So it's just getting that lockstep with each other and making our efforts at Tree Alliance more productive. We literally spent over 50 hours last year on the 3rd taxing district going to visit homeowners to get places to plant trees. It is so time consuming and we're willing to do it. But if there are other places where we can knock out big chunks of trees and make big impact, we want to do that too.
Paul and I did
one of the things, I'm sorry, one of the things, Alan, maybe I can set you up with Jose Ortiz, who's our supervisor that's in charge of our tree program of removing trees. And maybe if he just sent you and Erica and the tree advisory committee a list every month of, hey, we took down trees at these locations.
That would be
At least
good.
you'd have a head start of where the trees are actually coming down in the city. And that's no work on your part, and it's not very little work on our part.
That's
So-
awesome.
That
Yeah.
would be
We
great,
can-
Chris. That would be great. We also spoke to Paul, was going to give us a list of like where construction sites were taking place, where they had to remove trees because of roots. So if
Yep.
we could do that and have it sent to Alan and to me, that would be super
We can
awesome.
totally do that. And if you want to share your email with me, I will pass it along to Jose Ortiz. And literally every month, I can give you a list of all of the trees that were taken down by the city and contractors throughout the city. And at least you have some target areas that you're not just shooting in the dark.
Great. Love it.
And
One of the
Erica,
other ones now
I
too.
just talked with Anthony, and the 23rd and the 16th aren't written in stone. And if it has to extend into May to include you guys in that initial meeting, then Anthony's willing to do that, just to throw it out there.
Okay,
Great.
no, that's great. I appreciate that. I mean, I can do April. It's just the 9th and the 16th or 2 weeks I'm going to be traveling for work. But I can send you, an email to kind of follow up with that.
Yeah, if you want to shoot me some dates that Peter and Cindy and Rich and
Mhm.
Alan work for you guys, then I can pass that along to Lisa Shanahan. And I think Tammy Lingalis is part of that group that's going to participate. So Tom Livingston. So we
That'd
can
be
definitely
great.
do that.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Cindy, did you want to say something?
No, I
Yes.
just wanted to say to what Alan was saying, that Paul and I also, did some, pounding on the doors, and we had the same reaction. A lot of it's for us, it was solar. They all wanted, free space to get the
Mhm.
solar, the sun for the solar
Mhm.
panels.
Yep.
Mhm.
And out of, I don't know, 24, 25 places that we knocked on, spoke with people and left messages, papers, we didn't get hardly any response.
I would say a good 60% of the requests that we get to remove trees is because people don't want to rake leaves.
Yep.
And
Unfortunately, yeah.
we do say no a lot where they are not dying or diseased. We do tell them no.
Yep.
Sad
Okay.
truth.
With First Street, we have an obligation to put some more trees there too. I think Andrew was going to talk to some people there, but I have one at 21 First. We planted 2 down there, Bethel Street, last year. We have an obligation to replace approximately 10 trees. So if anybody else knows anyone down on First Street, we'd like to hit that, and that with the $15,000 that we have remaining in the tree planting budget this spring, I'd like to see if we can knock that project out.
Okay, and we can also look at the list that Chris is going to have sent to us and see, if we can use some of that money for that as well. So, I mean, it's definitely not going to go to waste.
And we have our paving project out to bid now, so that went out last week. We can provide the list of streets that are all being paved for areas like we did last year. So that's another thing, we can provide that to you too.
Great, great.
Awesome.
Thanks for that suggestion, Chris. I think that would be super helpful. Any other business?
So just, I sent you guys photos of those planters.
Yeah,
Uh,
Peter, I think folks are a little slow to respond because I had to be brought up to speed. I really didn't know any of the background information, and I'm still learning about it. I agree with the picture that you taken. It doesn't that you sent us. It does not look good. So maybe we can talk about it and get some options with what we can do. Maybe we can fix them up, put some different plantings in there. They're empty
back.
now.
The key issue is there's no one taking care of them where they are. We own 6 of them. 2 of them have absolutely nothing in them. They don't belong where they are, in front of what was a chocolate shop. There are 4 other ones on Main Street, which the trees are half dead in. So I've casually talked with Paul about getting them relocated to the Riverview Plaza, and thinking that the Wall Street Association could manage the trees into the future by watering them.
Okay,
So I've
I'd
got
have
the
to,
Wall Street Association thinking about how they would keep them watered. It would be our cost to get them relocated. And that could happen tomorrow, quite frankly. There's nothing stopping us from doing it.
Who put them where they are now?
We
We
did.
did. And what it was is part of Eversource's undergrounding of the utilities and the duct banks that go from Bethel up where I am, all the way down to the New Canaan Avenue Power Station. We were able to get them to do some donations of money for plantings. They would not allow us to put trees back over the area where the duct banks are. So to try and get some kind of trees in that area, Rich and I and a group of us worked to try and get those planters in there with some trees in them, using the money that Eversource
How
gave
long
us.
ago was that? And is there paperwork in an agreement between the city and Eversource saying that those planters need to be in that location?
No.
No, yeah, the answer is yes, Peter. They gave us the money for that area. So,
No.
well, we got to be careful about taking people's money for one thing and moving stuff someplace
We've already
else.
moved two of them. We've already moved two of them. They're not in that area. My
We
point is,
shouldn't, if we did, I don't know anything about it and we should not have.
so I want you to think about how we could relocate those. 'cause
Then
I've
the
got
other thing we got to be careful of too is the people down, we want to make sure that the businesses on Wall Street are going to want them there, and the business association is going to agree with it also
So
and
if-
maintain them.
If the business association moves forward and is positive about this, can we get them moved? I mean, that's the question, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time if we can't move them. But they look terrible where they are.
I'm concerned about moving them based on the money having been given for that area. There's no underground duct banks that were part of that project in the area that you want to put them.
All right,
How
so then
long
how do
ago-
how do we
long
keep
ago
them
did you
green?
do that? How long ago are we talking?
7, 8 years ago, right, Rich?
I believe so.
At least, maybe 10.
All right, I mean, look, I mean, I think 10 years, it's reasonable to say that maybe our needs have changed. And we don't always, I mean, I don't know, we have to look at the paperwork. I don't want to make it like a unilateral decision without knowing all of the information, but they don't look good based on the picture that Peter sent. And it's definitely something that we should at least, look further into before Peter, pounds the pavement himself and gets signatures or whatever he needs to do to have us move them.
One of the things that we were concerned with all along is using planters because they become ashtrays. And keeping the trees alive in those planters is difficult. And Rich, I'm sure you take your advice on that. It's probably not the
saying we
most
shouldn't have them
ideal.
at
and We didn't
all?
like it at the time.
Are you saying we shouldn't have them at all?
I'm saying if we can do something down in the Wall Street area, other than a planter, we might run into the same thing if they become ashtrays again.
Well, they're ashtrays now, so what's the loss?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not working, they're not producing the effect they're intended to.
No.
Do we
So,
replant them
do we
and
want to
get-
do it again on Wall Street? I'm afraid of getting beaten up by the people down there if they don't survive. So maybe we try and put some in-ground planter in the area down there rather than doing the
Well,
above ground pots.
I can tell you how to put street trees on that street very easily, but I don't think the city's going to want to spend $700,000 off the top of my head.
No, that is no,
Okay.
but
All right, so the point is I've got 6 defunct planters that the community in Wall Street will probably very much like to have. They've been talking about getting trees on that plaza for a year and a half. It just dawned on me that I've got the Wall Street Business Association with Nancy McGuire and my buddy even, Mr. Milligan. So if they can come up with a sort of commitment that says we'll keep these trees watered, or we'll find arrangements, that's a key issue. Keeping them
got an
clean is
idea.
also-
Can you come up with a plan in that area for maybe like a 10 by or a 4 by 10 planter, 10 by 15 planter? That all we'd have to do is just take the pavers out and run a granite curb and put the dirt in and then a tree. I can't see how that would be $700,000.
But we'd still have these ugly empty planters where they are now.
Which
So
we
that's
could now
not-
do something to
it's
take care of
not-
those too.
Yeah, so maybe can you pull the paperwork that's associated with this initial?
I'll have to dig it out and find it.
I mean, if
If I have to call Eversource, I'll call Eversource. I'm sure they probably have it too. But I'm saying I don't have it right in my desk. I'd have to see where it is. It could be down in storage in the basement.
So Rich, where were the two that ended up in front of the chocolate shop? They were not initially there, right?
No, when we were looking to place the initial ones on Main Street, ran into the same problem that we do when we're trying to plant trees. We couldn't find storefront owners that were willing to have a planter in front of their store for fear that the planter and or tree would take away from their signage. So the two that went in front of the chocolate shop were two of the original that we couldn't find locations for, so we wanted to keep them in the neighborhood, and that chocolate shop was surrounded by concrete sidewalks in the front where you couldn't plant. So that was the closest location to Main Street that we could find.
And I also think that the people when we ordered those originally with the quantity that we got, the people later said no after we had ordered them too, and we had to find a spot to put them after the fact.
We also had to spend X amount of
People
time.
changed their
okay,
mind.
so we did put them in an area where they weren't originally intended. So that's something there.
After the fact, when the people backed out of what they said they were going to allow us to do.
Okay.
It's
They
in
didn't realize
the
they were
area. It's
big as they are.
maybe 500 feet away, 1,000 feet away from where it was intended to go, not a mile and a half away.
Okay, but the point is, they look like, pardon me, hell. So.
Oh, they do. That's why we didn't want to do them in the first place, because we didn't like the looks and the potential of them becoming ashtrays, which
Right,
is
but
what
we
they've
do
become.
have them. We do have them. So we have to figure out how to either fix them or move them.
I mean, because it makes it just one more contributing element that makes Main Street look derelict. You know, dead trees and pots don't look good, period.
No, they don't. I totally agree. And that's one of the reasons that we tried to do street trees to begin with, but as a last resort, ended up doing those. But I totally agree. We shouldn't do planters like that in pots if we can avoid it.
So let's think about it in a positive mode. If we think it's a good idea to move them to the Riverview Avenue Plaza, which they're well needed there. And
If we
get a group to watch, how do we do that? Instead of putting, obstacles in our way, like this agreement with Eversource, how do we maneuver this agreement to put them where people can actually enjoy them? So that's my question. Because let's say yes, if the committee says this is worth doing, then it's worth following through.
We've got to be careful of our obligations, Peter.
Whose
gotta be
jurisdiction does that
careful.
area fall under? Is that Chris's decision? Is that like who decides if something could go there? Is it the businesses there? Is it a business association? Is it like who makes that decision? Because I mean, we can make that decision.
I would want to see something, if we were going to advise anybody, I would want to see the business owners saying that they wanted them there, as well as the Business and Merchants Association saying that they wanted them there and would take care of them.
Okay, so I can't get that from them if you can't move them. So
Hey, Paul, what's the difference about these planters and the ones that Dave Shockley does for redevelopment on Washington Street?
Who paid for them and where they got them?
These are quite large.
Those are
We, the
gigantic.
city did not pay for them. Hal negotiated a deal with Eversource because of the underground utility lines and the damage that they had done in the area, that they had to do certain things.
Okay,
And
but
as
if
part of the
the
restoration,
people are-
it was the plantings. And
But if
the
the people are not
plantings
taking
couldn't be
care
done
of them
because
where
they
they
wouldn't
are,
agree to it. So what they ended up doing is they said, we'd put planters in there to try and get some kind of trees in that area versus nothing at all.
I just don't see the big to do about, I mean, we're the city. We can put planters anywhere we want in the city right away. Like it doesn't have to be approved by Jason Milligan on Wall Street. We can put them anywhere we want.
They don't, I mean, well, I think the key issue here is, does the association want to sort of commit to taking care of them? That to me was the bottom line. But if we can't move them, then I'm not going to press the issue with the, Nancy McGuire who's running the committee right now.
And
I mean,
my
she's
question
thinking
for
about how
you,
do we
is
keep them
it
wet?
better to do planters, or if we can come up with an in-ground planting plan do that rather than the planters. Most of the time, we've always wanted in-ground
Okay,
plantings.
I just want to interject for a second. We have these planters someplace right now. They're not working where they are. So it's either get rid of them, right, or move them. And if Peter's come up with a way where we can still use them and move them, I think we should look at it like a viable plan.
And to Paul's point, I actually think of these as being the precursor to a full depth tree planting line there long-term. I think that these trees are, they'll trees and planters last about 15, 20 years. You know, they don't live forever. I think we actually see this as a precursor because putting them in ground would be 5 years by the time we got through a process. And there's nothing in the capital budget. We can't afford it in our budget to do this. At least I don't think we can. I mean, you know, it's $1,000+ a tree to get them in the street.
I mean, you're taking out some brick pavers, basically, saw cutting the area, excavating it, putting maybe a granite curb around it, and then filling it with some topsoil.
And the first thing I'm going to hear is there are utilities in the way, we can't put them there.
It sounds like Chris has some experience with moving some of these things around town, so maybe he can weigh in on this.
I mean, I'd love
We
to
can
see.
move them because we moved the redevelopment
From there to
every year.
begin with.
Put 'em
Chris
back
did
up.
it to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see a line of trees in the ground. I just don't think we can get through in the city, whereas we can get these there in a month. And we can get theirs there in June.
I think it's doable, Peter.
I mean, I think it's doable. I don't see where anyone's going to call us on this. And
No.
if they do call us, we'll put them back. It's a labor cost.
And we can do it. Like, we're the city, we're Public Works. We can move them around and we can put them back if we have to. Hopefully we get buy-in from the community and they really like them, right?
I mean, I think the Wall Street crew is good. The only, you know, taking them off of where they are is the only thing that I think might, no one's caring for them. No one cares for them, so.
What I would say at this point, Peter, then is you go get the agreements. And when you get them, then we'll go ahead and look at it.
Yeah, I mean, if we think we can move them, then getting the Wall Street guys to buy in, that's fine. I'll press the
But
pound.
there's two. It's not just the Wall Street Association, it's the businesses there where they're gonna go too.
They're the
there's-
same people. They're the same people.
Well, no, they're two different people. You've got the Merchants Association group, Nancy McGuire, and then you have the actual owners of the business where they're gonna say you're blocking their signage.
Actually, I think there's only two there. That's the bank and B and C.
There would be two groups that would have to buy in.
Well, and if you see me asking, but if the Wall Street Association asks the owners, that's more viable to me than me asking. So that's where the buy-in.
However, yeah, however you work it out, but I just don't want to move them and then have the businesses complain.
No, that's fine. That's not unreasonable.
Okay, great. The only thing that I wanted to say, kind of in closing, was that we got the NEEF grant that we applied for. It's the National Environmental Educational Grant. It was to put some trees in a bench over at Ludlow. And I got an email just yesterday saying that we got it. So Paul is in the process of working with some folks in the city to set up a fund so that we can have the funds deposited there. We thought that would make the most sense, the cleanest way for us to access it by the trees and the bench very quickly, as opposed to, I mean, look, we could always put it in with Norwalk Community College, but it is additional red tape. So if we can get this grant fund, it'll kind of give us a place where we can deposit funds that we are awarded and have access to on a more an easier basis.
And when I talked with the controller today, she said she would set it up. It's not a problem at all. And she said that we could do them either on a case-by-case basis. And that would maybe be one thing too, because she was concerned about commingling the funds from one grant to another grant. So she might do it on a case-by-case basis, but she said it was definitely doable.
Yeah, we should be so lucky to have overlapping grants and excess money. But I appreciate you talking to her, Paul. It'll just make life a lot easier, and it'll keep us in control of the funds for the grant that we wrote. So, all right, guys, if there's nothing else, I call to adjourn.
I definitely need a potty break.
Now you definitely need that martini.
Yeah. And I got more trees to do tomorrow. It's been a
Have
long
good-
time since I planted a 5-inch caliper oak. All right, guys, thanks.
All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that all.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.